The still is where booze is prepared. Where is it? The fishery is where fish are prepared. And they're cleaned and all that stuff. And again, I don't have any fishermen, but I just want to have it out there. And this is where I put it. And then the last thing, I'm actually going to make a little side room because it's for the butcher shop. And the butcher shop makes like corpses and stuff. It makes a lot of refuse that they don't use, and that creates miasma. So I want to put it in a different room and put a door in front of that room so that the miasma doesn't come out and bother the dwarves. So I'll just kind of put it to the side here and make some room for it. And you don't want to just make like a little 3x3 room, because then every time someone opens the door, all that miasma comes out, and you want some room to put your refuse anyway. So I'm going to go ahead and have that be my butcher room and refuse stockpile. And is it up here finished? No, it is not. So we're still mining, and while you have only 7 dwarves, especially because I only took a couple that have skills that are really useful early. Oh, did I put an extra spot in there? In the stone workshop area? Let's see. Well, anyway, I want to put in a craft dwarfs workshop, excuse me, in there, and we'll go ahead and expand. And an interesting thing is if you put down another stone stockpile here, if I put down, even if it's overlapping with this one, this will actually be considered a separate stockpile. And that doesn't really matter, except that you can use that to get dwarves to put out more storage units, because like one of the first things they do if a stockpile is started and the things go into a bin or a barrel or a pot or whatever, they'll put one of those down so they can start putting stuff in it, so you can get dwarves to put more down. Silence while I stretch and squeak my chair. Alright, we're starting to get the basics carved out now. The next thing is... Oh, and we already have some refuse from the cats killing vermin. The little purple 2s are refuse, and I'm actually going to look at those and see what they are. I don't usually bring cats. Lizard remains. Okay, yeah. So that's what that is. And if you push enter on it, you can look at its weight and value and things like that. If you push V, you can go to description. This is a lizard's remain. A lizard remains. So that's fun. And that's done. And do I have a door yet? No, my miner has not had a chance to make me a door, which makes sense. That is the downside to putting your miners on. And honestly, in retrospect, it was probably a mistake to put on my miners carpentry and masonry respectively. That one's always kind of tricky for me to figure out, because you could also try to put those both on the same guy, but then obviously you can't make things at those 2 different workshops at the same time. I probably should have put those onto not the soldier, but maybe like the 2 guys who kind of have like nobly skills, like the organizer and the appraiser, because then they'd have something to do right now. When dwarves don't have something to do, and I'm going to hotkey back up to the top, they like to kind of stand around and talk to each other. And I don't actually want them to stand around on the surface, because it's more dangerous. It's not necessarily dangerous, and it's not right now, I wouldn't say. But, oh, and some plants are coming in. But nevertheless, it's better if they're not. So, one thing you can do is press I for zones, and then this is just like D for designate. You then designate a zone, but this time we designate the area first and declare what it's for second, because it can be multiple things, unlike designations. And you see there's a bunch of stuff up there, all sorts of things. What we're interested in is meeting area. And if you designate a meeting area, instead of milling around at the embark point where the wagon was, they'll actually come down here and do it. and that is generally safer. And also they'll be closer to things should they need to use something near the workshop or get food or something like that. I suppose, let's see, so I'm going to look at my stone workshop. Alright, the mason came through and he made everything, so I'm going to put a door up here. And I don't have a butcher, so this is another shop that's not going to get made for a while, but at this point I just want to have everything laid out so I don't have to fiddle with it later. And then while I'm here, I'm going to go into my stockpiles. I'm going to hit R for refuse. And refuse is generally items that aren't used for anything and are a nuisance. They often are bits of corpses or something that make miasma. Yeah, I actually don't want them to put skulls, bones, shells, teeth, hair, or hooves, though. I just want all this other stuff. Because all these things I just forbid are actually useful and you can use for things. So I want those to go somewhere else. And again, like if you just, I don't know why I said again, I don't think I'm referencing something I already said, but if you just put down a refuse and you let them put all that stuff there, that's fine. It just means if they want to use it, they have to come up here and get it. So, you know, it's not a big deal if you don't customize your stockpiles a bunch. It won't really hurt you. The only thing it'll make happen is it'll add some extra steps to a dwarf's job, which is fine. I'm also going to add corpses. And corpses is just corpses. And the last thing I'm going to do is put a zone over it. And I'm going to declare that my garbage dump, D. So now if I go to an item and I push K over it for look, where those lizard remains go? Oh, they're probably throwing them out. But alright, I'll use this gypsum as an example. Down at the bottom there's a hotkey for dump, and if I push dump it'll get a little pink D next to it, and the next dwarf that starts to haul stuff, he'll take it up to where I've designated my garbage dump at. And so the garbage dump area is specifically just for putting items that you designate as needing to be dumped. So another good place to put your refuse or dump is on the surface outside of your fortress, but not near the door, because that gives the miasma plenty of room to disperse. And the miasma, it sounds bad, but it doesn't actually... you know, actually, I'm not sure if it interacts with wounds and gives infections or not. I don't think it does. But the main reason I'm trying to keep miasma away from my dwarves is just to keep them from having the unhappy thought of, ew, miasma. Another one I'll point out really quick is F, lowercase f for forbid. If you hit that, dwarves will not touch it. They will leave it alone. They won't do anything with it. And that can also be useful if you have an item in an area you don't want your dwarves to go to for whatever reason. Follow, capital F, if you hit that, it will, the camera will follow whatever it is. So, I mean, it's not useful on a rock, but if you want to follow, like a dwarf, as they go around, you can go over to the dwarf and hit follow, and now the camera will kind of track him as he's digging. But now that we have the Craft Dwarf's workshop, one thing I want to make is, and this is a huge list, and a lot of these things that are more specific, like if it says make, that's an actual job, so that won't open a menu, but rock, wood, bone, and shell, those all open submenus, because those are all things you can use to make stuff at the Craft Dwarf's workshop. So I want rock, and I want specifically pots. And the reason I want pots is because foodstuffs, including alcohol, needs either barrels, which you make out of wood, or pots, which you can make over here at the Craft Source workshop. And like I said earlier, because rock is less valuable, if I'm just using stuff for storage, I want to use rock. And I would like quite a few of them, so I'm actually going to... here, I'll add another one. If you push plus and minus, you can select whatever the task is. If you push P on it, it moves it up to the top, or it moves it up one, rather, not up to the top. Some of the other things are self-explanatory. Cancel removes it. Stuff like that. But what I want to do is hit R for repeat, which means the dwarf will just continue making that over and over again. And actually, I'm also going to add make crafts and also put that on repeat. So what'll happen is the dwarf will make a pot, and the pot on repeat will then get sent to the bottom of the list. And he'll make a craft, and then that'll get sent to the bottom of the list. So he'll just alternate making crafts and pots. And I want crafts because crafts are worth value. You basically turn rocks into value. And that's great because when a trader comes, I can trade those crafts with him. But there is something I need for the trader before he shows up. And it looks like I'm actually going to have to cut down some trees. And this is also the thing one of the first things you need a building designer for. Actually, I think it might fit. So I'm going to go to build. And I believe it's capital D on this menu. Yes, it is. For Trade Depot. I don't want it to be that close to the downstairs, though. So I'm actually going to wait. Ooh, what are those? There are bees over there. I hope those are not bears. I hope they're something less scary than that. They're boars. Alright, that's better. Generally speaking, because of the way Dwarf Fortress works, if an animal is scary in real life, it's probably scary in Dwarf Fortress. So, but they also don't behave crazy. Like bears don't just like attack you for no reason. In fact, I think they kind of try to avoid dwarves if they can, the way a real animal would. But if they do get into a fight, which can happen if they're like milling around too close and certain things happen, something like a bear would take a dwarf rather that knows how to fight like a soldier to deal with it. So boars are fine. And actually, if I go back to the big list of things that are here, if I go to others, it'll show that I have boars as wild animals on my fortress land. And the same thing applies to this. You can push Z and it'll zip over to it, which is useful. There's a snake over there, a king snake. Okay. K for king snake. So that's neat. Now the trade depot is 5x5, and it says it needs architecture. And you can look at this whenever you're building something, and it'll tell you which type of job a dwarf has to have to come over and get it to the next step. So because I chose to make it out of stone, an architect who has the building design skill, that's what needs architecture means. It means it needs a dwarf that has the building designer skill. They have to come over and design it, and then a dwarf with the masonry skill, because I made it out of stone, will come over and actually build it. So we'll watch that happen. Or maybe not. Dwarves kind of just pick stuff to do. There's some priority to it, but it's not enough that it's very easy to control them unless you make dwarves very specifically do specific things. You can also push S if something is being built to suspend the construction, and that means it will stay there, but a dwarf won't try to build it. And so once that trading depot is done, when a trade caravan comes, because I'm pretty sure I have dwarf neighbors, they will go to the trade depot and unload their goods, and I will then be able to bring any goods I want to trade up to it and trade. So that's great. And now we have our farm plots are all ready, so we're going to go build, and then P for, is it plot or farm plot? I don't know, but I know it's P. And this one uses UMKH to designate the area, more or less. So I have these green cursors or X's, and it'll keep going. And this one's a little, some of them will do this, where if you try to extend it out into walls or something, it will just cover it up. But others, if it's something more complicated, will actually, the whole thing, like here, it'll turn red. And it says building present, and that's the farm plot because that's considered a building. So if I try to place it where it's going over the farm plot, the red X is where it can't go, and the purple X's are where it can go, but it can't be put down because something is in the way somewhere else. So that's that, and I'll go ahead and put one of those in each of these rooms. And here's another little efficiency things with stockpiles. I'm going to put down a food stockpile, and then I'm going to customize it because I don't want them to actually keep most kinds of food here. Now what I want is to get rid of most of these things, so I'm forbidding them with F. And for some reason some of them don't turn all the way dark gray. I don't know why that is. What I do want though is seeds and fruit leaves, but not fat or anything like that. Or mist liquid. So basically I just want just seeds. And that's it. And I'm actually also going to, so I have room for things, I'm going to go into my stockpiles and push X to remove stockpile. Go ahead and get rid of that, and then also make a little spot over here. So this is going to be for the farmer's workshop, and this is going to be for a quern. And a quern is used to manually mill or grind things, which is just one way you can process certain things. But you do have to make a quern at I believe it's at the masonry workshop. So we want farmer's workshop right there. Gonna put that in. Then a dwarf with farming enabled will run up here and make the plots and do all that fun stuff. And we have a dwarf coming up to bring barrels of seeds. And then down here, where my food is actually going to go, I'm going to make another food stockpile, and I'm going to basically make it the reverse of what's up there. I want everything except for seeds and a couple of other things. And again, if the custom stockpile stuff is overwhelming, feel free to skip it and just put down whatever sounds kind of right, because it won't hurt you, except that your dwarves might walk around a little extra, which is not anything near the end of the world. So meat, fish, unprepared fish because the fishery's there. Eggs, plants, drinks, cheeses, not seeds. Milled plants, yes, that's flour, sugar, stuff like that. Fat, I actually don't want, I don't want paste either. And the reason I'm taking these off is, and I probably won't get to this for a while because it's a little bit complicated, but my fat and paste I like to put near my soap industry because those are things you need for making soap. And soap is something that is not at all important except in the case of washing wounds, and it is very important because it keeps them from getting infected. And I don't want mist liquid because lye and milk of lime are also not used to make food, they're used for other things. And that's not milk of lime, the fruit lime, that's something else. Alright, so now that I have some actual stockpiles out, I'm going to get rid of this general one I made when I got in here. And we're starting to get some stuff moving here. This is starting to become the skeleton of something. So I think I'm going to... I definitely want my living space to be below here. But I think I'm going to save up here for like... Ooh, I'm planning in my head. No, I think I will put it down here. Because the one thing, because I have kind of this long hallway between this downstairs and going up to the kitchens, I was considering that if I put my living space directly down here, they'll have to walk a little ways, but it's not that far enough that I'm going to care about it. So I'm just going to put it down here. And then actually if I make a hallway going up north, I can even put in more staircases and all that good stuff. So I'll go ahead and do that actually. And I'll just remember to keep my hallway around there. And I'm going to go ahead and designate a kitchen while I'm in here. And then once that's done, we will see how to make rooms. And that would be great. So I'm going to go ahead and designate a nice big room. A lot of rooms, if they're for a specific dwarf and they have to share them, it makes them like it less. But having a really nice dining area is a really easy way to give your dwarves happy thoughts. And one of the easier ways to make a room worth more is just to make it larger, because that's part of the calculation. So I think next time we will mess with the setting up some living area, some dining room, some rooms, maybe some sort of communal room like a statue garden or something like that. But that is going to be all for this session. So I am still the Wizard of What, and I hope I've taught you something, and you'll join me next time.